Hello, welcome to my channel. My name's Chris and I'm 8 months into TSW. I'm 34 years old and I am absolutely rubbish at speaking in front of a camera. So I've never done it before, so please be patient, it's all new to me. But this will be the first video of many because I'm at a point now, 8 months into TSW. I'll explain what it all is and everything. I'm at a point now where I feel I'm in a position where I can talk and help other people who are potentially going through what I'm going through. Over the course of the next however long, there's going to be many videos about tips and advice on what I believe has helped me get to this point. What things you might want to avoid, but ultimately, as you'll see in my name for my channel, I've taken a very natural healing route to TSW, which, you know, a lot of people do. It's quite difficult at times, but I'm a firm believer in it, and I'll go into why in a little bit later on. So firstly, what is TSW? For users that don't know, TSW is a condition. It's called topical steroid withdrawal. It's a withdrawal basically from using steroid creams for however long. Sometimes could be weeks, could be months, could be years. In my case, let's go back to the start. I started taking steroid creams for my skin when I was in my teenage years, and finally started to feel like they weren't working for me last year, where I got forced into TSW. So staying with the start, in my teenage years, I suffered with eczema from a few different reasons. I think I first noticed it when I was 14 years old, washing up at my first ever job, and I think all the chemicals give me eczema on my hands. A couple of years later, I didn't learn, and I was still cleaning, but in a different role in a bakery, cleaning pallets, again with heavy chemicals, and again the eczema would worsen. I was using a mild steroid cream at that point called hydrocortisone, applying it to my skin as and when, now and again, the weakest of the steroid creams you can use. And yeah, like anyone else who will experience steroid creams, it takes the symptom away briefly and you think, wow, what a miracle cream this is. So the symptoms go away, but then, you know, I'm going to come onto this later on as well in my next videos as well. It's just a band-aid. The cream basically, it doesn't fix anything. The eczema comes back worse and worse the more you use them. It just keeps coming back and it doesn't fix anything at all. But you're not to know that, and anyone who's going through this, be really sympathetic, because, you know, one of my missions is to actually try and bridge a gap between the medical world and those who are actually suffering from TSW, because you're quite isolated. Doctors and even a lot of dermatologists do not believe in TSW. They just think it's eczema and they don't see the downsides to these steroid creams at all. You get prescribed them without much warning of what they can really do to the body, and it can be extremely damaging, as you're about to find out in my story. So after that, into my 20s, eczema off and on. At university, I was using steroid creams as well, but then my eczema got much better in my mid-20s when I moved to Australia. I lived in Sydney, lived on the beach, and from memory, when you don't really think about the past until you go through this and you think, wow, how did I really get here? But the best time, I think, for me was when I was living close to a beach, on the beach a lot, swimming in the sea, and absolute magic in terms of what that can do for your skin. Later into my 20s, I was then living in Switzerland. Had a very good job out there, you know, quite high pressure, living at altitude in the dry air. My eczema would come back from time to time, again, back on my steroid creams. I've got to be honest, in my 20s, probably didn't have the most healthiest of lifestyles. Doing all the things people should be doing in their 20s, you know, a lot of probably alcohol consumption, which I think now I know is a big trigger of mine for my skin. And ultimately, I've never really prioritized my gut health ever, really, in terms of the foods I put in my body. And yeah, in the last 8 months, I think that's come back to haunt me a little bit. And I'm going to go into much more of that in detail as well. So that's my history. I'm going to come on to now in a minute my first 8 months, what it's been like month by month. But ultimately, if you're liking what you're hearing and you think this is going to be someone that you can relate to, or even if you know someone that might be going through something like this, please like and subscribe, because there's going to be a lot of, I believe, really fantastic information for people who are suffering like myself. So before we get into my first 8 months, just going to describe the two things. You've got TSW and you've got TSA. TSA stands for topical steroid addiction. TSW, topical steroid withdrawal. TSW addiction, I think, is way more common than we think. Basically, if you're using steroid creams and you apply a couple of days later, need to reapply, or a week later, the symptoms keep coming back, you become dependent on that cream to try and suppress your symptoms, because that's what the steroid cream is. It's an immune suppressant through the skin. Then, you know, when you've got dependency, you need more of these creams. They stop working because you keep coming back. You go to the doctors, you go to the dermatologists. They will then start prescribing you stronger steroid creams. And this is where the trouble can really start happening and everything can accelerate. So again, there's going to be more videos on the different types of potencies with steroid creams. Ultimately, there's 5 tiers, I believe. And, you know, you start off with what would be a hydrocortisone. And then before you know it, shockingly, the strongest steroid creams are 600 times stronger than hydrocortisone. And in my experience with the doctor, when I went last year, I had a bit of an issue with my skin, and I went to the doctor to try and figure out what can be done. He then put me on a stronger steroid cream. I went from a tier 1 to a tier 4, which I think is probably 200 times stronger than hydrocortisone. So you can already see madness, really, that's kind of a go-to thing. And look, one really important thing I want to emphasize here is I don't blame doctors and dermatologists, really. I've really tried to focus on, if you blame and you get angry, it's not going to help healing. But we as a community in TSW, which is a very strong community, by the way, I'm going to come on to that as well in terms of online help and stuff. Yeah, there's a fight going on here to really bridge that gap and almost educate doctors and dermatologists about what these dangers are, and hopefully get a bit more clarity on what we're actually taking when we're taking it. So after moving back from Switzerland, I lived in the UK, came back in COVID in 2020, and worked different areas in the UK for a bit. And then where this becomes relevant is in October 2023, I started a job as a hotel manager in a luxury hotel. Fantastic job, something I'm really proud of doing, really enjoy it. But ultimately it comes with a lot of stress. Now, I believe I've always been quite good at handling stress. I feel like externally people think, wow, you know, this person's quite calm. Internally, God knows what's going on. But yeah, I think there's something in that, because as soon as I started the job, within weeks, I had quite a bad eczema flare up on my face. I got prescribed antibiotics, which is a key point, and I'll come on to that soon. Or maybe in another video, we'll see. And I got prescribed oral steroids and hydrocortisone steroid cream. As you'd expect, cleared everything up within 3 or 4 days. Skin stayed semi-stable, bit of flaring for the next sort of 6 months. So we fast forward to the summer of 2024, probably like June, I think. Had a bad flare up of eczema, went to the doctors. I got prescribed Dermavate, very strong steroid cream. And I was on this for I think I went through 2, maybe 3 tubes of that, and I went back to the doctors after 1 month of use and said, I'm not so sure about this. And the doctor said, just apply more. Shockingly said, just apply more, keep going with it. And you trust doctors, don't you? So that's what I did. And then fast forward to probably September, I could tell that my body was not enjoying this cream. Went back to the doctor, saw a different doctor. He prescribed me a cream called Protopic, saying it's not a steroid cream, comes without the dangers of steroid creams, but it's got a few little things to be aware of. Makes you very, very sensitive to sunlight, so avoid sunlight. Now, sunlight's amazing for skin and what it does in terms of producing vitamin D. That should have rung alarm bells to me, but it didn't. So I did start applying that cream, and it was very burning, very, very uncomfortable. And ultimately, if you listen to your body at this point, you think, wow, this cannot be good for me. So I tried to use it for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, alongside the steroid cream, which was, the doctor said was fine. And I first noticed something weird was going on in October 2024. I was on holiday with my girlfriend in Madeira. And I had this sort of rash that when I'd be on the beach with eczema and sunlight, it'd go away. And this rash was not budging. And it was a different kind of feeling. It was very, very hot to touch, very burning, and just something just felt different about it. And then I started getting these symptoms of electric shocks from head to toe. And it could be anything. Imagine if someone makes you jump, but this was not from being made to jump. I could just be sitting down and, I don't know, eating, and a fork falls on the floor. And I'm like, it's like, it's hard to explain, but it lasts for a couple of seconds. I think it's like the nerve damage. I now know they're called zingers, and I'll come on to it a bit more, but I'd be walking upstairs, there's some steps, and I'll nearly trip up, and it's like a shooting pain from top to bottom. And then I was thinking, this is weird, but I could not link it to the creams at that point or anything like that. That's all unbeknown to me. So I last took steroid cream, the Dermavate and Protopic, around my birthday, which is the 14th of December, 2024. I just took the decision that these are not working for me. Very little help coming from the doctors, and so that's the decision I took. Came to Christmas. In hospitality, you have a very stressful Christmas and New Year period. It's very busy, it's very fun, but a lot of stress. I started getting this horrendous red rash from pretty much head to toe. It didn't affect my hands. Burning hot, really living hell sensation, where you were in so much pain. This started, between Christmas and New Year. And I can remember, obviously, not sleeping for a minute, and that lasted for about 3 weeks. The worst pain I will probably ever feel. It felt like constantly like there was 1,000 ants crawling all over your body. You couldn't do anything about it. I can remember breaking down. I can remember screaming on the floor of my bedroom, sleeping in separate beds to my partner at this point, because there's no chance she'd have slept next to me. Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. So that's where the actual TSW started. It was actually my girlfriend that did some research and was like, I think you're going through TSW. So, props to her for finding that. Otherwise, I don't know how to even figure that out. But amazingly, and this is maybe where I've gone wrong in this, I carried on working. Got myself out of bed every day, red hot, oozing body, couldn't shower, couldn't put any water on my skin, burns, felt like acid, incredibly painful. But yeah, carried on working, and I can be quite obsessive on some things. If I get my head on something, I go deep. And so I went deep into figuring out what's going on in my body and why it's doing this and what I can do about it. And I very quickly came across NMT. Shout out to Rob TSW on YouTube. You've really helped me, buddy. I mean, like, some of your videos are fantastic, so do check him out as well. I'm going to be doing separate videos on NMT, but here's a brief description of what you do. It's complete moisture withdrawal, so no moisturizers, because at that point with my red skin I was trying all sorts of coconut oil, keeping it quite natural and using chemicals as well. So I tried Epiderm, which is a petroleum based emollient. Avoid that like the plague. Yeah, and coconut oil, nothing was working. So then I found NMT. You take away all moisturizers, you limit showering to once to twice a week if you can. I went a good month without showering, and my body went into self-cleaning mode, so I didn't actually smell, and my hair was okay. Sorry, losing train of thought here. So moisturizer withdrawal, limit showering. You've got to limit your water intake to 1 litre of water a day. I'm gonna, in the next video, I'll explain with M&T why that is. And exercise for an hour a day, and you've got to be asleep between 10 and 2 a.m. You very quickly become an insomniac, so that goes out the window, but that's what you should be aiming for, because that's between 10 and 2 a.m. is when the body's healing itself. Yeah, NMT, very hard, but when you're in a desperate situation like that, I'm so glad I did it. I believe that got me out of the worst of the red burning stage of TSW within about 3 or 4 weeks, and then put me in what's called a very dry, flaky, oozing stage. So fast forward to the end of January, and I was feeling pretty good. I was like, by this point, I watched loads of videos on TSW, people saying it takes a minimum of 2, but most likely 3 to 5 years to get through. And I had a holiday coming up, and I was like, maybe I've got away with this one big time. So end of Jan, went skiing with some friends. I was away for a total of 8 days, I believe. Found the traveling very hard from memory. Got to the Alps, managed to get out skiing every day. I was on a strict diet at that point, but started to drop my diet a little bit because where I was going skiing it has like the world's best pastries, and I was like, I'm not traveling this far to not have a pastry. I'm going to enjoy myself a bit, have a couple of beers here and there. All in all, the first sort of half, it was a very good trip. And then I moved ski resorts to go back to where I used to live when I lived in Switzerland, see some more friends, and included then a bit more socializing, a couple more beers here and there, and came away from that holiday on a massive flare up. Yeah, that's when things started to get real for me. The whole of February, basically a blur, but doing NMT constantly, just, I mean, I'll send you some pictures here of what it looked like, but pain beyond belief, oozing this pus that smells like metallic, weird, really weird. Just in terms of the pain rating, if you do suffer from eczema, my way of looking at it is I've had severe eczema. If I think the eczema itch and pain is probably a 3 out of 10 compared to a TSW being a 8, 9, 10 out of 10. It's that different. It's a nerve deep itch that you just cannot get. You could rip the whole skin off your body, which is what I was pretty much doing on a daily basis. Yeah, and it was horrendous. So February, very much in it. I've pretty much got every symptom there is going at this point through January. You know, we talked about the red skin in January, and into February I had thermal deregulation, which is basically you're either very hot or very cold. There's no in between. Very, very uncomfortable, and this is all day. This does not give you any respite. You could be covered up and freezing. You could be naked and boiling hot. Your body's lost all sense of control in terms of what it needs to do to keep the temperature down. Yeah, Zinger's still very much going on in February as well. Weight loss is kicking at this point. Now 8 months in, I mean, I didn't have much weight to lose anyway. I was quite healthy, sort of 12 stone, 12 stone 2 maybe. Now I believe I'm around 10 and a half, just over 10 and a half stone. You can see here, I look a bit like a skeleton. Very, very common with TSW. It's just one of those things. Insomnia still going on in February, and at this point as well, depression and anxiety became a real big thing for me. Looking back, I was getting depressed. I had a couple of breakdowns where out of nowhere you just start crying and feeling hopeless. Yeah, and then another big symptom which is quite a factor for me is swollen lymph nodes. So your lymphatic system in your body is your system that clears out all the toxins, and must be something to do with steroid creams. It blocks these up and stops your body from detoxing basically. And this seems to be where a lot of the rashes follow. So you've got some lymph nodes on your chest, as you've seen from the pictures. A lot of my TSW is on the chest. You've got them behind your ears and on your neck. I mean, I had big rashes going up here, all on my neck. Groin area has been very bad for me. And yeah, so that's just another symptom. In terms of actual skin itchiness, I'm managing it, and worst areas to get TSW, I'm going to come on to that in later videos. I'm doing a very, very bad job, but I'm trying to keep this brief as we go through the months. So February is hell. March, still in hell. I had another ski trip in mid-March planned. I know what you're thinking. Who is this, like, ridiculously fortunate person? I realise I'm very fortunate in terms of I've got a good job and I've done a lot of skiing, which is something I love. And yeah, second ski trip mid-March. Worse than the first one really in terms of TSW. Very, very difficult to make it out of the house to make it to the airport. It was very stressful for my partner. I thought we were going to miss the flight. Got to the airport. We're going with a group of friends. Believe me, when you're in this, you do not want to speak to anyone. You do not want to see anyone. You really just want to be on your own and in your own little hole and trying to manage it the best you can. Got on a flight, got my transfer, had a itch attack, I think on the plane or maybe in the transfer. So I was oozing the whole way to the resort, which is about a 2.5, 3 hour journey. And then I spent, I think, the first day in bed. And then really proud of myself at that point, because actually for that ski trip, I did get out and enjoy skiing every day. Not first thing, but I felt like I got a bit out of it despite being very much in pain every evening, having very early nights, oozing loads, and just generally in a really bad state. Last night, the holiday, I decided to try and let my hair down a bit. We went to some après-ski, had a couple of drinks. At this point, I'd only drink tequila and soda water because it's the lowest in histamine. And wow, had a monstrous flare-up. Got sent into hell. And then the next day we travelled home. And at that point, if I'm really honest with myself, I was dipping in and out of NMT. And it got to that point then where I was like, no, I believe in this. And, I had to make a decision. I was like, I'm either going to go down the immune suppressant route, which is what a lot of people do. And I've got nothing against that. But my very quick opinion on that is that immune suppressants, you put another Band-Aid on another Band-Aid. And whilst they can be effective, they can come with some serious side effects. I'm not going to go into too much on that now. I might do in a later video. And this whole journey for me has been about taking away dangerous chemicals and things that have got me in this position. So coming back from that ski trip in March, I decided to go full on NMT, no excuses. I'm doing it. this tied in quite nicely with some better weather approaching the UK at that point, so I was able to get outside quite a lot more. And I went in on NNT. I mean, 1 litre of water was the hardest thing to do. You know, you talk about no showering, oh, that's easy. No moisturiser, easy peasy for me at that point. Exercise, then get back to the water. Just, you would like 1 litre of water is just not enough. It's actually 2 litres of liquids per day, but then, you know, you've got to factor in your food into that as well. People get really scientific on it. I'll be honest, I didn't have the mental focus to get that scientific, so I just stuck to 1 litre a day, and then my food on top, and it worked. I was doing exercise in the morning and evening. I was doing a 5k in the morning and a 5k in the evening, getting super fit. Never been a runner, but started getting really into it, and started just managing things a lot better. So itch attacks I was conquering with meditation, which I'll come to in a later video as well. But what this meant was that by the time I got into April, I went down to the sea to Cornwall with my partner. We had a couple of days down there with my dog as well, and went in the sea, which was very painful. But things started to get better, and then once I got to sort of near the end of April, I had around 7 to 10 days, I reckon, of feeling very good. And that to me shows that I came out of my first flare cycle, which lasted 3.5 months, I guess. Yeah, felt amazing. I felt like I had my life back. What happens then when you get your life back, and I was trying to be like quite optimistic and be like, oh, I'm great now, I'm smashing this. Sort of things start coming back in. So my diet would slip now and again. Work, I'd always have access to leftover breakfast, sausages, bacon, all the good stuff. Always cake on tap as well. I've got a massive sugar addiction, so having cake on tap was just too irresistible when I was feeling good. So yeah, fast forward 10 days and things started to come back a little bit. I had a couple of evenings with friends where I'd have a couple of drinks, as you would when you're feeling good. Very important for the mental health aspect, considering where I've been at. And then, yeah, getting into sort of mid-May, things started to change again. The oozing starts coming back, and slowly but surely, I realise I'm in a full-on flare, and I'm trying NMT again, but I'm in it, and you know, flare number 2, here we go, and yeah, stayed like that for the whole of June and into July, and now. Yeah, it's second flare for me. I think was harder than the first, because a few things, like you've gone through the first, you think, wow, okay, this is going to be the worst of it done. I think I've been in more pain. I've had more bedridden days in May and June. I've had to take time off work, which is something I desperately didn't want to do. I feel like it's quite defeated, but needs must. And I'll come on to that a bit later on, why it's been absolutely crucial to where I am now. How many times do I say by the way? I need to work on that. Okay. So, second flare, really, really tough. Also the fact that because we're getting good weather, May, June, you know, sun's out, guns out and all that, friends are out doing loads of good, cool things. And I like to be active, I like to be always doing things. So when you have bedridden days in May and June, for some reason, it hit harder than it did in the winter. Okay, fast forward to July and where I am now. I realised in June that I had a bit of a mental switch. Whilst work was very good in some respects in terms of you know, getting you out of bed, giving you something to focus on, not your skin, which I think is really important, by the way. It was really taking its toll. Stressful, but I handle stress now very differently to pre TSW, in the sense that I can't handle it. The zingers, the shooting nerve pains, crop up out of nowhere. And yeah, it just seemed to deteriorate from there. I started to feel that I wasn't very good at my job, because some days every day I was going to sleep and trying to wake up, or, you know, sorry, at this point in June, by the way, sleeping now is still insomniac, but I get probably 1, sometimes 2, rare, sometimes 3 hours a night. It's still very broken up as well. So trying to function on this and do a job role, which, you know, can be intense. I've got a team of 79 people, and we look after a maximum of 78 guests at once. We've got a spa, a few restaurants. There's a lot going on, and I love that, and I'm so proud of what I do. But when we put all these factors into it, it made it very difficult. And I was finding that I was letting the team down by calling in sick in the mornings, not giving the team any notice. And so I went to the doctor, and the doctor was very good at this point. I'm going to go through dermatologists and doctors and everyone that I've seen, but I've managed to find a good doctor who was sympathetic to my cause, and recommended that I take a month off work. And the day I did that was massive relief. I can remember coming home, it's a couple of weeks ago now, coming home and thinking, wow, this is clarity. This is absolutely what I need for my body right now, to give itself the best chance of healing and getting through this as quickly as possible, so I can get on with the rest of my life. Which is not always the best attitude to have. You know, throughout the first 8 months, I would have to say that when you're in the worst of it, you don't look 2-3 months in advance. You've got to live hour by hour, day by day, focus on a lot of positives, really search for that inner strength that you've got in you, and you all have it, by the way. If you're going through TSW, we're TSW warriors. You will learn more about yourself going through this than you probably will any other point in your life, providing you've not got any other serious illnesses. So yeah, that's where I am now. Okay, 2 weeks after breaking up from work for a month, it's given me incredible focus on what I'm doing. I have a very set routine now. We've had some lovely weather. I've managed to get down to the beach for some sun and sea. I'm going to come on to that as well, but I'm not going to show you pictures in next future videos, but you'll see amazing pictures of what it looked like on, say, a Wednesday, then 2 days of sun and sea, what it looked like on a Friday, and the difference is incredible. Yeah, so that's where I am right now. Things with my skin itself are improving. I feel like I'm coming out of the flare cycle. I'm still very hypersensitive in terms of the zingers and stress. I'm still very itchy. Oozing is calming down. Hair loss, I've only had a little bit of hair loss. Insomnia is still very much there, and working on my mental health a lot more now, which is what this routine of being off work is really helping me with. I get up now 5:30 in the morning because I can't sleep past that anyway. I'll start the day off with some trampolining to empty my lymph nodes, a yoga class on my deck in the sunshine, which has been amazing. Follow up with a 4 or 5k jog. Try and be outdoors as much as possible. I play a lot of golf. I think it's fantastic if I can get out there and swing, which has been very hard when I've been in full body flares and I've got like the really dry skin that NMT brings. Sometimes swinging a golf club's been impossible. I've had to cancel a lot of golf matches, that kind of thing. I know golf, skiing, absolute privileged, person here, not denying that. But yeah, it's been a big help at times to get me through to where I am today. So that's where I am now. As mentioned, this this channel is going to be all about healing naturally and the different treatments and tactics that I'm using, what's working for me, what's not, with looking at, vitamins, supplements, that kind of thing. The one thing I'd say is, when you're in TSW, if you listen now, you'll resonate to this. You're desperate. You will try anything you can to relieve the itch, to get out of this absolute hellhole. And unfortunately, you can learn from me as we go through this. You can waste a lot of money. You get desperate. A lot of people say that time is the biggest healer for TSW. I don't disagree to some extent of that. I think they're right. The writing's on the wall. 3 to 5 years seems pretty average. There's people that go through it for a lot longer. I've seen 9, 10, 11 years, which I don't know how they keep doing it, but so strong, keep going. It's incredible. But I am really determined to be a guinea pig and test out a lot of different things naturally to see if this can be conquered quicker. And yeah, share my experience. Okay, so please like and subscribe if you're going through TSW yourself, or know someone who even takes steroid creams, so they know what to expect if they carry on or what it might lead to. Please share it with friends, like and subscribe, see what's going to come up next. Yeah, if you're going through TSW, just remember you are way stronger than you think you are. There is light at the end of the tunnel, healing happens, and you've got this.